Welcome to a new episode of the VSP podcast. Today I have on TJ and Alex of the Command Center. Really excited to dive into their approach to pitching. I've been partnering with them for years, and they're also some friends of mine. So we're excited to talk to them all about their approach. And they're also going to be presenters for our Baseball Performance Summit, which is going to be Saturday, November 22nd. We're excited to host that here. We got a lot of players, parents, coaches from all around the area that will be attending to learn about what everybody has to say. So without further ado, let's jump in. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on. So I want the listeners to learn a little about you guys. So why don't you just start off by who you are, how you got into the game of baseball, and maybe a little bit about your approach.
Sure. My name is Alex Pangourelias. I've been coaching now for 15 years. From the performance side of things, I've been a pitching coach since 2016. Baseball for me has always been my life. From the time that I could walk, I was playing baseball. But once I got to college, saw the structure and routine that coaches went through on the day-to-day, it really opened my eyes to another side of baseball that I hadn't seen previously. I was fortunate enough, right after my playing career was over, to secure a coaching gig with the team that I played with for most of my life, which was the New York Nine back in Queens and the Bronx and Brooklyn. And they gave me the reins to kind of run the pitching the way that I wanted to. And from there, it just kind of springboarded into more organizations out in Long Island once I moved here, which is a completely different area than Queens.
Much better, I think.
Yeah. Listen, I love Long Island now. But the pitching side of things, understanding the science-based practices, understanding the people that you work with and how to best help them to utilize their skill set has always been ingrained in me. So yeah, I've loved it since I started, and I can't get enough of it.
What's going on, guys? I'm TJ Pecoraro. Very similar to Alex. I started playing when I was really, really young. My dad never really played competitively, but he loved it unconditionally. So I really started playing around 8. Ended up developing pretty young, did pretty well. Played some college baseball at Vanderbilt, which was amazing. Lucky enough to get drafted out of high school, but decided to go to college. Unfortunately, a couple injuries that cut the career a little bit short, but right after that, I jumped right into coaching. I didn't really want to let go of the game altogether, so for the past now, I'd say 10 years, I've been coaching youth amateur baseball. Met up with Alex probably about, I want to say, 6 years ago.
Yeah, 2019.
Started up the Command Center and helped a lot of guys find a way to get to college themselves. So it's really fun trying to help these guys, the right way, take it to the next level. So really, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been working with you guys now, I think, 2020?
Yeah, like right after the pandemic.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah.
And, I haven't met too many coaches that care as much as you guys, so it's nice to see that.
Same on that is true.
Thank you. And you guys have created such a culture, with the Command Center where it's fun, right? You got the goofy side, maybe in Alex, maybe the strict side in TJ, but both of you guys share the same background, I feel, when it comes to your approach to pitching or using science. So, Command Center starts in a little bit over a month, right?
Yep.
Which is a great pitching program for anybody that's here on Long Island or even in Queens. Talks about how does that look? How do you guys set that up? Like for somebody coming in there, what would they expect?
So we've actually, as the years have progressed, we've changed the program, the model of the program. Obviously, there's a lot of science-based numbers that have come out that we've taken into effect. We've lengthened the program. Originally, it was only 8 weeks. So we've actually gotten to the point now where we go 16 weeks. We start probably a couple weeks after the fall season ends and then on ramp all the way up to their spring season. And we try to make it as competitive as possible. We used to, I would say, throw probably a little bit more. We've kind of catered a little bit more towards the strengthening in the early phases. Pitching is kind of the last half of the program now. So I think it's really transpired into something that a lot of guys look forward to in the off season.
Yeah, I think when a lot of people start hearing about a pitching program, they don't realize how much of that is done off mound. The pitching side obviously is great, but there's only so much of that you can do throughout the year to keep your arm healthy, to keep your arm strong for the entirety of all the seasons that youth baseball goes into effect, whether that's spring, summer, fall, anything that they do outside of that with showcases, camps, clinics, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of baseball. So we want to make it phasal in the aspect of like, okay, since you've already gone through all of these seasons, how can we get you now back to the strength that's at your highest? How can we get you as flexible as possible? How can we give you as much range of motion? How can we get you mobile? And then use all of those skills to then help formulate what's best practice on the mound.
Yep.
You know, it's funny you say something like it's most of your sessions aren't ever on the mound, like a very, very small portion of it. Like when I come and watch, you know, because I'm fortunate to be, you know, play a small role in the program, maybe a minute or two kids are spending in total of their time throwing, and that's towards the end of the program too. You know, so I think that's important to note that like there's a lot more.
Yeah, I think the education process is like the biggest part, at least for us, because we get guys sometimes that stay with us from 12 years old all the way through. We have some guys that might come for a year to try and get the most out of their bodies, or we might have people that parents just inquire. And I think that when they walk through the door, our biggest selling point is that we want to go through this journey with you. But in order to do that, we have to educate you on the why, the how, what you're going to hopefully see at the end of it, and then how can we best manage all of that into what works for you, timing-wise.
Exactly. One of the big, you know, buzz phrases, I guess, is like workload management. You know, within the program and then beyond, you know, how do you guys keep a pulse on these athletes, especially those kids that just love to just crank it up and get after it, or you know, just push through that, you know, that pain and fatigue.
Yeah, it's a grind, but it's a good one to help be on the right side of. So I know that TJ definitely looks at pitch counts. We look at the stress of their outings. We look at how often they've been throwing outside of with us. So like some guys might not play fall ball because they're playing another sport. Some guys might only play summer baseball because they have basketball on one side during the winter. They have another track and field during another time frame during the year, and they need to be ramped up at a different pace than somebody who's been doing it for 4 seasons over X amount of years. But I know that like recently, since 2020, since like post-pandemic, you're seeing such an uptick in injuries. So like I think Princeton put out a study that it was like 30% like volume increase in injuries from post-pandemic until now. And that's just the severity of whether it's AAU or travel sports, starting at such a younger age, not being educated well enough on best practices. And I can tell you from personal experience, like I coach youth baseball for Beast, so I do 2026 graduates, and I have a 12U team. And even before that, when they were 11, we saw a kid that threw 279 pitches within the scope of a week.
Yeah.
So just being with the right people and understanding like who's there for your health is like a huge one. And then just understanding like kids are going to get injured. Like overuse injuries account for 50% of youth sports injuries globally, not just in baseball. So understanding when to pull the reins back and be like, okay, maybe we should take a break for a couple weeks and maybe focus on the basketball that you're playing, or maybe focus on just being a kid. That will help significantly that number go down. But with Pitch Smart, it helps to a certain degree, the Pitch Smart guidelines. So understanding when kids are supposed to rest after X amount of pitches, and it varies based on how much they throw. But that's only a part of the pie. Like there needs to be a much more concerted approach to helping kids stay healthy, because like that's the industry. Like
it's gotten tough now because honestly, like right after fall ball ends, a lot of colleges, a lot of schools, they like to do camps, and some in the fall, some in the winter. So especially for the program, you know, it's really helped that we've been able to individualize things versus that cookie cutter approach. Because if we have a senior that has a camp coming up in early January, obviously his on-ramp is going to be scheduled a little bit different than, you know, maybe a 14-year-old who is only just getting ready for the spring season.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's even some schools that they try to start their workouts in November, and they're throwing bullpens upwards of 50, 60, 70 pitches. It's
80,
like,
90, 100.
yeah, they just stopped throwing. Now, I'm not saying they need to continue pitching at high effort levels, but there has to be some type of deload, you know, and we don't see that as much anymore as we used to, I think. So it's tough.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you guys brought up a lot of good points because, I feel like kids, especially maybe that are going through a plateau, potential injury or ailment, they think they got to do more.
Yep.
When sometimes
just talking about this.
doing less is better. I was joking around with one of my, actually he was an adult client, and I was like, even if you could, there are certain things that are good for you, right? Like water, but if you have too much of it, you can literally drown yourself, right? Like, so it's just like one of those things that, it's hard, especially for a young kid who may see things on social media and stuff like that, that, are going to do more harm. Which brings me to the next point. Like, what are some stupid myths or things that you guys see that kids should kind of like stay away from, or at least consider maybe asking a professional?
Sure.
So a lot of young guys, so they see a lot of older guys and pro guys doing like a lot of weighted ball training. Sure, that's great if utilized properly, taught how to do it properly, when to do it properly. Not even that many pro guys do it in season. If it is, it's very moderate. And so, like you said, less is more. We have some guys that play 3. I've seen some guys that play 4 teams in the season, whether it's little league, school baseball, a travel team. Sometimes we get guys on 2 travel teams at the same time. So just in general, not like even Alex said, maybe take some time to play another sport, focus on something for a couple months, and then jump back into, the specialized training or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I would say even aside from that too, right? Like buzzwords that you hear around the community, obviously the workload management stuff, but like velocity, like everyone's out for the highest velocity, the best velocity program, everything. So velocity is just a word. Like what you put into practice with your body creates that. What your programming decides what that velocity increase will be. It's not that I have to go up there and throw a baseball every single moment of every single day to increase my velocity. There's other things that you do outside of the scope of being on the mound, throwing a baseball, that contribute to velocity-based instruction. Velocity-based instruction isn't get a ball and throw it as hard as you can. Right? Like that will lead to injury, and that's why we have such high injury numbers, because since the inception of velocity-based instruction, you have some people teaching velocity-based instruction that might not be as well versed in the science and evidence-based practices that lead to better velocity, right? Like velocity is not just this piece and nothing else matters, right? Like the strength portion is like quite possibly the highest piece to velocity-based instruction. If you're not strong enough, your body's not going to be able to withstand that higher velocity.
We see that a lot in the program, right? A lot of strength numbers, stability numbers. You see it, you do the evaluations for the program. A lot of these younger kids, they just have no idea what their body needs to feel like before they start doing this type of training.
So I think that like being educated on that aspect is like the biggest one for me, because we can talk about the workload management, we can talk about how much a kid's supposed to throw, but if their body isn't strong enough to get through those rigors on a daily basis, not only just for one season, but for 2, for 3, year over year, day over day, you're going to be in a very, very poor place, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, if your body is breaking down every single time you're trying to develop at a higher rate. Which the development aspect, we preach to kids all the time, like the individuality is so important, because just because I see something online doesn't mean that's what I should be doing. And I need somebody in my corner to help formulate a plan that helps me.
It should be a byproduct. The velocity is a byproduct of the pitching instruction, the strength training, the recovery, the nutrition, the sleep, right? It's all of that matters. It's a comprehensive approach, and I think people just get lost in that end goal. They get so far ahead of it versus just, hey, if I focus on the process, right? Like, perfect example, in a way, right? He's had his up and downs, Max Hilsenroth, right? He bought into the process, of working with you guys, strength training, taking care of his body, and all of a sudden he didn't even realize his velo was up. You know what I mean? And it shows you how important that is. Love Max. Shout out to Max Hills and Roth. All right, so let's transition here a little bit. So a lot of the parents and coaches and players that will be attending the event are going to be probably somewhere around that 12, 13 years old. So, from maybe like an institutional perspective or like your personal whatever, how do you guys handle that average 12-year-old when it comes to just baseball in general, forgetting about pitching?
Well, you coach the 12.
Yeah, I mean, so fundamentally, like at a youth level, like the biggest thing that I look for is an interest from their side, right? Because at the crux of everything, this game is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And if you're 12 years old and you're not having fun doing it, there's a whole world of other things that you could be doing.
Yeah.
From the parent side of it, are they receptive? So can we have a conversation about maybe your son is doing too much and we need to pull back the reins? Maybe your son isn't doing enough and we have to have a conversation about what they can do more. From my side of it is, can I be conservative with their throw amount, both in practice and in game? So how many throws are we making in game? How is that going to then impact how many throws they make, or how many throws in practice do they make? Then impacts how many throws they make in game. Right. So like if we have a practice on a Friday and we're doing upwards of 60, 70, 80 throws just based on outfield cuts, infield stuff, because they play multiple positions at that age. Correct. Maybe they're not going to have as high of a pitch count or pitch at all during that weekend until maybe if there's games Saturday, Sunday, maybe not until the next Tuesday. Stuff that we can do to limit until they get to the big field so that they get the development that they need, but also understand that, okay, there's more to this than just 12U baseball. Yep. And I understand, right, trophy chasing is a thing. Yeah. Being a competitor should be a paramount, right? Like that shouldn't go away just because we're trying to limit things. Then you make your roster bigger. But we want to develop at a pace that's appropriate for the kid, where they are physically, so in the puberty cycle. Fundamentally, if there are any things that they need to change mechanically that we can work on, and then just as, like, if you would speak in a school, like the whole child, you're focusing on the whole child. You want to get all of those pieces, be creating a plan with the parents to then impact all the baseball stuff.
I would honestly argue that age, 12, 13, is probably the most important to really start to understand workload management. Yeah. We've been doing this for 10 years almost now, and those are the ages we usually see the most injuries. Those guys are now
and they're the ones that want to come back the quickest.
Right. Some of them are playing school baseball, some of them are 7th grade now, so it's that they're playing the summer ball on the smaller field and then spring ball on the bigger field. This is where we see a lot of the growth plate separations. Yeah. A lot of kids, like you said, are hitting puberty, so they're growing really fast.
Little league elbow.
Yeah, the little league elbow. So
little league shoulder.
It's really important, especially those ages, I think, to dive into the workload management and just appropriately approach. It depends on the kid's size.
Education can alleviate so much. Yeah. So much. Yep. But it's just a matter of being upfront and then being receptive to both sides, right? Because I'm not perfect. I don't make the best decisions all the time. But like, if you have a conversation with a parent and you can be accountable on both sides, the kid is going to be in a much, much better place. And at the end of the day, it's youth sports, right? Like, I'm in this because I enjoy it. But the kids have an entire future ahead of them. So.
Yeah. Now, I know you guys are going to introduce a 12U program as part of Command Center. I mean, is that going to look vastly different from the 16 and 17-year-olds?
Honestly, not really. It's going to be relatively similar. Like I mentioned before, we're not taking that cookie or cutter approach. So each 12U guy is going to have a slightly tailored program to go towards them. But it's a similar on-ramp for them. We're not going to do as much maybe weighted ball training with them, obviously, because they're still in that growing phase. But for the most part, it's going to emphasize on strengthening, some mobility, and just
a lot of understanding movement patterns.
Movement patterns, sequencing. So
right, because you can probably tell in your line of work too, right? Like you get somebody in that looks like a baby deer. And you have to try and revamp how they move, why they're moving certain ways, to then bring them to a place where, okay, now maybe 6 weeks into a program, now I can finally feel stable doing a foundational principle movement that I can move on to the next thing.
No, that makes sense. Now, is there anything that you guys would love to change about the game of baseball? What are your thoughts? Is there anything that you wish that or if you're going to be eventually when you have children, like that you would do differently?
You could go first.
Honestly, I don't really think so. Honestly, the biggest thing for me is just like the scheduling. So I'm not a huge fan of fall ball. I think it's almost kind of a necessary evil because
Right, Northeast guys, they need to still throw.
right. If you stop playing at the end of the summer, you're not playing in a game again until April realistically.
Yeah.
So that's a long break. I mean, some facilities can facilitate obviously like live ABs for pitchers and hitters, which I think is awesome, but it's just really tough to manage. So nothing really specifically about the game, but in the Northeast, finding a way to, properly deload in the fall is really, really hard. Yeah.
I think also just from like the global baseball standpoint, right, for youth, Perfect Game does a good job of enacting those pitch limits, the pitch smart guidelines to ensure that kids are taking the time away from throwing on the mound when they need to. But I think for even smaller tournament structures throughout Long Island, I think it would be well served to take those guidelines and implement them just so that we don't have situations like I saw.
Right.
And whether they're on my team or not, right? I'm not in this to bash another kid. Like I want to see that kid succeed. So if you're throwing that much, it's going to put you at a disadvantage as you get older, right? There might be like something from the baseball side of it being like, oh, well, he got all the work in, but okay, at 11.
Yeah.
Now what about 14, 15, 16, 17, 18?
Right.
So I think just globally being more mindful on like a organizational standpoint from like tournaments, camps to understand like, okay, we have to have a better way to assess and reassess how much these kids throw.
Yeah.
And then how can we implement strategies to help them from themselves.
Right.
No, that makes sense. Now, that brings me into my one of my last questions. Early specialization. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with it? I think that a lot of times, we see it. I work with a lot of multi-sport athletes that, they love playing different sports. It gives them a mental break, from doing that. But, at what point do they have to specialize if they want to play at a high level, right? You have a kid that, is crazy talented, and then they're a great baseball player. They play football, and they tear their ACL, and we've seen it.
Yep.
I know you guys have. Yeah. And then now it negatively impacts their chances of getting recruited, right? And it's hard because, you can walk outside and trip over something and tear your ACL. But, what are your thoughts on that?
It's highly debatable. I'll use my personal experience. So I was an infielder pitcher for my youth all the way up to about 14. I turned 14 and I said, personally, I didn't enjoy hitting. I was like, you know what? I don't like it. I'm not that good at it. I don't want to do it anymore. So I started being a PO at 14. Unheard of these days. No one wants to be a PO at 14. But for me personally, putting all my focus into that obviously worked out for me tremendously. I was fortunate enough to get drafted out of high school, and I played at Vanderbilt for 4 years. The only thing that ended up
National championship.
who won 2014 we were fortunate to win the national championship, which is awesome. But it's tough because honestly I see it a lot with the kids. It's not even so much the kids that don't want to start specializing, it's the parents that don't want them to start specializing. They like to see them do both as much as possible, which I get, but at the end of the day, the one that's playing the game or wants to play the game doing something specific is being held back by something or other.
Yeah, I can definitely see both sides, right? Like, so I think baseball is one of the earliest of specialized sports because it asks so much of you, right? So like, just from like a movement perspective, right? You have to be able to run the bases well, which also feeds into other sports, but throwing a baseball is very different than any other sport, right? Yeah. You see a lot of baseball players that can also play multiple sports, but not a lot of kids from other sports that can throw baseballs the same way that people can execute throwing a baseball. So I understand that in order to reach that level of success, there needs to be some specialization. Yes. With that being said, I was still a 5-sport athlete in high school. Yeah. So I was able to do all of those things and still prioritize baseball. Just because you're playing multiple sports doesn't mean that you have to give up wanting one to be paramount.
Yeah.
So like, yes, I play basketball. Am I the best height for basketball? Absolutely not. But I was able to do things that would then help me on the baseball field. So like understanding different movements, like cutting to the basket or doing something that might help me with being an outfielder. Or then playing football and understanding certain awarenesses that I might not have needed. Or doing track and field to help with my stability and my quick twitch.
You got to be an athlete, right?
Soccer,
Obviously,
yeah.
other sports, they feed into athleticism.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
being able to do.
And I think that's
all
the
that.
biggest thing for baseball is, right? Like at some point you're an athlete playing the sport, and especially for youth, right? Like you're not getting paid to do one thing really, really good all the time. So you have to be well-rounded in certain aspects. So I think that early specialization is a hard concept to grasp for a 9, 10, 11, 12, even 13-year-old. As you get more towards the middle of high school, sophomore year, I think that there should be a shift towards what am I wanting to do versus what do I do for fun. And fun can be had on both sides, but if you're going to invest time, money, and effort, you might as well use that time, money, and effort in the best way possible to help your family's pockets. I mean, this isn't a free sport. It costs a lot of money to play.
Right.
So putting that in the right direction is definitely helpful, not only for the pocket, but also for...
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I mean, it is hard, and I think at some point people do need to make a decision.
A lot of college coaches at times, if during the recruiting process, they'll let the player know, like, hey, we see you as a pitcher, or we see you as an outfielder. You should probably focus a little bit more on that. But communication is key. So it sometimes gets tough.
And know your body, right? Like, if you continually are getting hurt from something, maybe it's better to do something else.
Right.
All right. Well, as we wrap this up, what could the audience expect to hear if they were to come to the baseball performance center? Like, what are some of a few of the quick topics that you guys are going to discuss?
Definitely some mechanical efficiency. We'll talk a little bit about workload management.
Best practices in arm health.
Yep.
Like understanding why you're moving your body a certain way and how that can elicit best practice on the field, off the field.
Yeah, and the importance of recovery days.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'll be presenting as well on the strength side, and I'll be a lot of the times referring back to how it carries over, right? I think that's so important, is that it bridges a gap, right? There needs to be that communication and that approach, as we were discussing in the beginning, if somebody truly wants to, see those results. But last thing, what do you guys like to do for fun? Tell the audience, what do you do?
You want to start? You can go
Gamer,
first.
baby. I'm a gamer.
What are you gaming right now?
Oh, God, he's going to hate it. So we've played games together, played Destiny, Borderlands,
That's
stuff.
very
Yeah,
cute for you
yeah.
guys.
Listen, man, you got to take the mind away from baseball
little bit,
sometimes
yeah.
and do something completely unrelated.
That is true. That is true.
Well, spending time with my family, too. So.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I got into snowboarding recently. My wife actually taught me. So that's,
Really?
yeah, we try to go as much as we can in the winter, but it's tough because we train a lot in the winter. So
It is hard.
so it's tough.
Yeah, it is hard.
Yeah, and just some family time,
Yeah, man. That's what this is all about.
Right.
Well, I appreciate you guys both coming on.
We appreciate you, man. Thank
Once
you.
again, you'll be able to see Alex and TJ here at our Baseball Performance Summit, Saturday, November 22nd. We hope to see you guys there. There'll be a link in the bio below. And see you guys next week.